welcome to our Thursday, April the 10th, 2025 Surrey County Board of Elections meeting, 3 p.m. The meeting is now open. We have a quorum. I will read the conflict of interest statement. As the Surrey County Board of Elections, we have a duty to avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before our board today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of a conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter. The agenda says approval of November 22nd and December the 2nd, 2024 meeting. We only have approval for the November 22nd meeting. The December 2nd meeting was hearings that we held in the historic courthouse that are not subject to board meeting approval. The orders were signed that come out of that meeting. So we only have November 22nd for your perusal. They are in front of you, please.
We have the transcripts here if anyone would like to see from December 2nd.
Director is the date appears to be November on the minutes. It appears to be November 15, and the agenda says November 22.
Yes, sir.
Am I missing something? So it is the 22nd.
No, it is the 15th.
15th.
It is Canada. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
The agenda is
The agenda for the approval of November 15th minutes is all it should be. A lot of minutes. That was a 6-hour meeting.
We put the law to work that night.
Most certainly.
Yes, we did.
And we're here until 11 the night before.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion for approval of the minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second for the approval of the minutes of the November 15th, 2024 meeting. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do it this way.
Yeah. as the minutes are finishing up being signed, I'd like to open the public forum portion of today's meeting, which is a part of every Surrey County Board of Elections meeting available to the citizens, either online or in person, to come before the board and speak any thoughts or their mind for any items that would be pertaining to the Surrey County Board of Elections. So I declare the public forum open at this time. Is there anyone that would like to speak before us? Present or online? Neither. So I will close the public forum portion of today's meeting. Thank you. Next on our agenda, North Carolina Board Member Association update. What is that, Madam Director? What?
I believe we have our district representative, I'm sorry. What's your title? What's your title in the district for the Board Member Association?
It is the district representative for 12 counties. It's District 3. Go ahead.
So we met in Burke County February the 13th for our District 3 meeting. First one, we had all been together since, I guess, the election, all the counties. And John Shawcross, am I saying, is that his name?
Is his name?
He was there, and they were trying to revamp, re-energize the Board Member Association. He was there to make that plea, explained what the Board Member Association did before it sort of lost its, or it fizzled out, I guess. And at that time, they wanted to nominate a member from each district, so there'll be 8 representatives. And so Dwayne is that person, and then Dwayne, you and John, you can update everyone on, has there been a meeting, or I guess they're still going across the state meeting with the other districts.
John Shawcross from Johnston County has been on the Johnston County Board of Elections for quite some time. And also he has been the president of the North Carolina Board Members Association for some time. He is the president. And so during COVID and the 2020 election, this particular association sort of got kicked off to the side of the road. And it is a group or representation of all board members of all 100 counties by district, the 8 different districts. District 3, as I say, is 12 counties going from Madison County, coming all the way up the spine of Northwest North Carolina into Surrey County, Yadkin, and going back down in through by Burke County. So I am a representative from the 12 boards of election members. And they have, as I say, succeeded in going all across the state with these board meetings in the different districts to have appointees. And so I know we will hear more in our July educational session to be held in Wilmington. No doubtably there will be a meeting of the representatives and the leadership, and to attempt to, like I say, get more interest, more input from all of the boards of elections. And so this is an unpaid volunteer position, and I hope soon to be able, as I can, to be able to maybe go to, as timing between now and July, some of the board meetings in these 12 counties, as they may, or they may not have board member meetings, but go to them and speak to all of the 5 members, and to be able to solidify a better voice. The directors has an association group that they have, and the board members of all 100 counties, that'd be 500 board members, which is a good block, which is a good voice to be able to carry to either the public, the state board of elections, legislative, and or wherever that we as a membership might need to maybe make our voice and our 500 strong across the state be known, because there could be issues that we may see that we need a voice in. So that's that. And so I'll do the best that I can for the 12 counties, as I have attempted to do for Surrey, and carry forward. Thank you. Any questions?
May I ask a question? What between you, Mr. Chairman, and Michelle, where do you kind of assess where this group is and how effective has it been in recent years?
In recent years, it's been ineffective.
Okay.
Because it, like I say, during COVID, it lost out. And
Which was my whole time. You know, I've not ever seen
It's true.
board member association. I really didn't know it existed.
So-
Until recently.
Fair to say they're just now getting, this organization's getting their legs back underneath them
Correct.
to
Right.
try to be effective across the state.
It seems to be trying to create a unified voice when
Yeah.
a specific issue comes up.
Yeah.
That as a unified 500 member voice, it would carry some weight
Yes.
in.
yeah, if it was felt that association felt like that would be the best way. In some ways, they might say, well, our 5-member board is going to vote on this and put our individual support from our county.
Yeah.
That's still available. And one of the other things that the board member association does oversee, and that is the certification of and the testing for board member being a certified, like your directors are certified or not, and also your staff as a certified staff. Board members can be certified also after so long of a period of serving, so many meetings that they have attended, educational sessions put on by the State Board of Elections, and meeting the testing requirements.
Timing sounds good.
Yeah.
Not to jump the gun, but particularly with the executive order 14248 and some of the things that are happening from a legal court standpoint. I mean, this group can be a pretty powerful voice.
And board members, as you know, Jimmy, I think you've said it a lot in the past year. You think you know elections, and then you get on this board, and Clark even said after this last one, I've learned more.
Yes.
Even from 2 years ago.
Sure.
And I think that's just gonna be a better resource for board members, and two, you know, the board likely may change in the coming months. We don't know what that's gonna look like.
Right.
So I think it's gonna be, they're trying to get some good resources in place. Might have 500 new board members, you know, in a few months. We don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Certainly possible.
There's no membership dues that are payable by any of the individual members, any of you all. That is taken up, and the county participates in that at a per member of 5, and is paid in as an annual due for this. And so that's equal statewide. Doesn't matter if you're a small county or large county, it's just on the individual. And it's a nominal amount.
very, yeah, I was gonna say it's,
So
and to help the board be a voice to legislatures to say, hey, 2.5 days for provisionals. Let's talk about what all goes in for
Sure.
those 2.5
Yeah.
days.
Consider this.
Consider this, and this. Yeah. So I think that's probably part of getting this energy back.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Now. 2026 budget request.
Yes, sir, and you all should have a copy of the request in your packet. And for the fiscal year 26, what we are requesting funds for would be the March 3rd, 2026 primary election, of course, would be the biggest item, and a possible second primary election. And I did speak with the county manager, and he did request that I go ahead and put the May 12th in. As you all know, it seems like the past few elections, we've had that second primary. So what these figures that you see here, 996,000 plus, does cover that possible second primary. And if you go to the part-time salary at the bottom of the first page, and then that carries over, you'll see there, chief judges, we have 23, of course, 23 election day precincts. And the price there for election day, you see, is $300 per chief judge. That is an increase that Sydney and I looked at where we felt like that our workers, especially our chief judges and assistant judges, they work on average 15-hour days. And if you do the math on that 15-hour day, at the rates we are now, chief judge is 200 per day, judge is 175 per day, and an assistant judge is 155. That also includes our student election officials. They're at 155. If you do the math on a 15-hour day, you're looking at $13.33 an hour, $11.66 an hour, and $10.33 per hour. So we felt like with early voting, the board, this board was gracious enough in 2022 to ask for an increase in pay for the early voting part-time workers, and the county commissioners did grant that. So we got them up to $14 an hour and $15 an hour. And they have much more opportunity to get overtime and things like that. So we felt like that was pretty on target. And we really feel like that all the responsibility that the chief judges, and assistant judges have on that very important day, that we felt like an increase was merited. So we are asking this board to give your opinion or what you think on the proposal of 300 for chief judges, 250 for judges, and 200 for assistant judges. And that's what we do have factored in here that you see.
How does that figure nationally?
I don't know about nationally, Paul, but I can speak for our district, and we're all right on target. We share information constantly with
So you're
the
within-
12 counties, and especially with voter registration similar to ours.
So it's a fairly comprehensive.
It is, and we usually compare voter registration count. That's what we're comparing county to county. We try to, match up to a county like ours.
It has just to do with North Carolina, and it's
Yes. And then, on into, you're welcome to ask me about anything here. Social Security, Medicare, retirement, those type things, of course, are only for full time. And then we get into more of the meat of the budget there with contracted services. And then you see supplies and materials is a very large area there. That is ballots. That's, everything with an election as far as replacement batteries, toner, whatever you need. So that is why that line is what it is. This year in September, every other year, every odd year, we do have a banquet for our appointed judges. And so that will be September of 2025. You see that in perishables. Training and travel is, it looks like a lot, but when you have a 5-member board, you can't hardly get away for, you know,
That's
what
actually pretty
we,
low, I think.
yeah, we're required to go to conference. You are required to go to conference, so that's as bare bones as it can get.
Did you get any guidance from the county on some of these line items? I know they usually provide some guidance on
Like a
a
percentage.
base percentage to increase many of the particular line items.
Like for the first year, this year, they did not.
Really?
They said they felt like they had seen when they give that recommendation. Some department heads will say, okay, last year I had 7,400 times 25%, and they'll ask this. Instead of taking into account, wait, do I really need? So they did not give that recommendation.
Well, good for them.
So they gave formulas for your retirement, your insurance, all that. That was it. But this was the first year.
That's the breath of fresh air.
That was, because I saw that even question. He said, well, yeah, we're not doing that.
Well, now I'm gonna be a little bit hard on you then.
Okay.
I suppose you look backwards.
I may be ahead,
And
okay.
I suppose you look backwards on things like your supplies and materials and base your increase on something to say, I need to increase this by X%.
And Sydney and I get together, we look at what did we have for absentee by mail in 2022. You know, everything for this is based on not last year's numbers, but your primary of a mid-year, midterm. And then with your inflation now, yeah, all that's taken into account.
Okay.
Two items. One,
Sure.
you know that the postage on all things has just gone up a nickel.
Luckily, Paul, our state director, no, executive director, she gives us very good information to put in our budgets from USPS. And luckily the county goes strictly on what we ask for. Because
The other thing, you remember, we had an issue because we didn't spend postage to send a second letter to a different address. Has that been addressed? That we sent an address, we had a voter, they had multiple addresses, we sent one notice out. And they never got a notice because it went to a post office box instead of to their physical address.
Oh,
we can only send it to what their mailing address is on their voter registration.
Okay,
this came up during our hearing that night, that
yeah,
wanting to make sure that we were doing everything we could to notify the voter of action that they needed to take. So, yeah.
In your real quick, I'm sorry,
No, sir.
I understand that, of course, the IT department, the county IT department has said that we have laptops that are used out on election day or primary that are basically, they are going to have to be replaced.
And that's important.
And new-
Those
Where,
11,
11.
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, and Dwayne, we did address that with county manager probably in January. And he advised for us to go ahead and purchase those now. So those already have been purchased.
in this budget year,
They are already in our possession. MIS ordered, they've already got them ready and we got them last week, I guess. Patrick brought them over. So that luckily is taken care of.
so that's all that needs to be replaced at this time.
Correct. And I asked that when I was preparing budget and he said, no, if you have the money now, I would much rather you do. And he sees what's,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that helps out next year, cutting.
Yes. Good
Saving.
advice. We'll take the advice.
and I will point out on account number 55020, building and equipment rental. You should have this where a sheet looks like this with the color graphs on it. That breaks down your costs that I mentioned, the increase for your election day workers. Then if you flip over, if you all remember back in September of last year, we talked about how all over the place the prices for our rentals, our precinct rentals were. And we decided to table it until after the election. So that is the rental expenses you see there and what we are proposing. This proposal, this is what is in for budget. So that is with the increase in the rate and getting that more consistent because it was surely all over the place, wasn't it, Sydney?
Apparently, they're asking that you place nothing in contingency now.
Sometimes they want contingency, like your possible second primary in contingency instead of in the budget. But Chris asked that it be in the budget, so therefore, no, I had nothing. in contingency.
Well, I mean, I can recall a time when you place a percentage in contingency to cover not a line item that would be as large as what a second primary would be, but for any number of unforeseen things that might be there. I know the county then placed a secondary line item of their own for that, for all the departments. But apparently that's not the case anymore. Okay.
I can't speak for other departments, but no, not.
Well, yeah, I know this department is a little bit different than other county departments just because of the way this operates. It concerns me a little more here. But if we have a major need that we have to go to the county for, we have to go to the county for that need.
To your point, Clark, reminds me when we went to the county board of commissioners to get the approval for a new person.
Yeah.
Wasn't in the budget, but we knew
Yes.
what the need would be, so.
I know just a few weeks ago, this budget was not this is not your only budget that you've had to send in to Chris because
Got another one here that I didn't give to you all, yeah.
the state legislature had a Senate Bill 440, that was in the hopper that would have caused all county boards of elections in the state to have a bond referendum this fall. That would have been early voting, same day or election day voting. That would have been all precincts. Yes, absentee, it would have been the whole thing, just as if it had been a full-on election to hold this bond referendum for, it was a statewide school budget bond. And apparently it didn't last. It was just a flicker of a candle for just a few days and it went away. It was not picked up. And so I know you had to send that budget into the county manager as if we would be having a fall, next year's budget, a fall election.
But it did go far enough along where you have to create a budget for it.
It did.
Here, I'll pass it around. I just didn't make a copy for you all, but Chris asked that I do go ahead and put it in. So that's 1.1 million for that, but.
Sorry.
We had a department head meeting though yesterday and, they're going to be looking through each budget with it's a big deficit right now, so. He might be coming to smaller departments. So I don't know where this will go, the very, very, very preliminary reports. I already present it to the board, before it goes to the commissioners. Which, we're not there yet, of course, but partly the reason why the meeting needed to be when it was. And on the pay for the judges, again, if you all want to discuss that. We agree, if you want to take a vote, that would be all it would require for this to stay in the budget, which is reflected in the minutes. We did not have to do a resolution.
Open discussion on the change of rate of pay.
We don't pay any of them enough. You do not pay any of them enough.
I know every one of us at this table is, fiscally responsible. But to Clark's point, for the magnitude of the results of an election and the work that goes into it, the new rates, in my mind, are bargain. It's a bargain. I mean, these people put in a lot of time and they are held to the same oath and the laws that we are. And there's there's responsibility and risk that goes with that.
Impression.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of responsibility for even at the new rate.
The most expensive rate is per hour works out to be what, 15-hour day,
15 hours a day,
13.
$20 an hour at the $300 rate.
$13 an hour.
1667 an hour for the 250 judges, and then 1333 for our student election and assistant judges.
1667 an hour.
Is the median, yeah.
Okay, see what you can pay someone to mow your yard for
Yeah, that's good.
per hour.
Absolutely.
That is a
So
very,
we're asking a person to secure an election for us, to be there for 15 hours and
And you've got Walmart paying as much as $20 an hour. Yeah, starting off, starting out.
If
You know,
there's,
some of these folks have worked with us 50 years.
there's,
Well, even the new Walmart starting at $22 an hour.
Yeah, that's the new, yeah.
so,
it is a long day. You do work not only just for that one long day, the day before, getting your materials, getting it in here. It's,
Custody, chain of custody is huge on those chief judges. Mr. White, don't want to put him on the spot. He's been there. He's been our chief judge.
You
many
know.
times.
and
You attend.
I call it paid volunteerism.
There you go.
thank you, Mr. White, that's,
That's pretty appropriate.
Yep.
I think we would all acknowledge, there's no one who does this job for the money.
No.
Not anyone does this job for the money, so. I anticipated if we were going to discuss pay for these employees, that we would have been discussing rates higher than what we're talking about. And if we had have talked about rates that were higher than what we're talking about, I would have been in favor of rates higher than what we were talking about. So I'm certainly fine with the rates that you have presented.
something that our group of judges and assistant judges brings, and that is experience. If our judges looked and said, no, we can't do that for that rate, and we had to say, Sydney, it's on your shoulders and Michelle to find replacements at this rate,
Especially
Right,
that short of notice.
Listen, my lowest man in my company gets $20 an hour. And he doesn't do much but sweep the floor.
Any further discussion on the rate of pay?
So, no, I think it's way below. Reasonable, it's way below a reasonable rate.
I feel we all have a consensus as far as
Yes,
where the figures are.
yes.
I would say that if your chief judges, if it wasn't a minimum of $20 an hour. I mean. In fact, I don't even know why there's a variation between the judges.
Well, Paul, our chief judge is.
Yeah, I understand.
Everything's on
Yeah.
them.
Oh, it falls on their shoulders.
As you know, and then they do come to one additional training
Yeah,
more than all the others. To where we cover specifics just for those chief judges.
so how do we address it?
Well,
That's your question. How do we address it?
and they do get paid $30 per training. For every training anyone attends, they get
Yeah.
paid $30. Plus the chief judges, we're paying them 20 to pick up supplies, 20 to bring back supplies, which I know that's nothing.
Yeah,
So that's an
Plus
addition.
cell phone, we pay $30 on election day for use of their cell phone
Then that is in addition to.
and
what their
mileage. If they're working outside of their office.
Precinct, all right. And that's all in addition to their.
Fringe benefits.
Yes. Well, at least makes the hourly equivalent, a little bit tolerable.
And again, just briefly to flip over to the precinct rental expenses, we had some that were paid per election. Some paid election years only, some paid annually regardless of no election. So that definitely was all over the place. So what we proposed was $200 per election. Period. And so that covers, we use it, we're paying. If we're not, we're not.
Are you satisfied with what you have presented?
Yes, sir.
Is this a motionable item?
Please.
On the singular item or the total budget?
This singular item, the poll worker pay and the precinct rental.
Yeah, let's do that, and then let's.
Yeah.
Take a moment on that.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposed pay for hourly workers, and also we accept the pay for precinct rental expense
okay,
as noted.
is it,
Is that on this color sheet here?
Yes, that, and then there's a sheet on the back, it's got your precinct rental, group. The ones we paid, I think it was at 8, 10.
So this is just the precinct officials. A motion,
Yes, and the rental. Mhm.
and the rentals
An
also,
increase in that. Mhm. I think that's what Jimmy, yeah.
Yes. That's what I
And Jimmy,
intended.
I'm gonna make one change, it needs to say for election day workers,
Okay,
not hourly workers. Because they're actually paid once.
right. Thank you.
Mhm.
do we have a motion on the floor? On the table?
You just need.
Yes, we have a motion,
Second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
and now we have a second. We have a motion, and we have a second to accept the proposed pay for election day workers, and also the rental for the locations used in the primary and election days. Any discussion on the motion as presented? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Is there anything else on the total budget or?
Not unless, I will go back down to, what do I have here? Yeah, telephone, again, you'll see there that chief judge cell phone reimbursement of $30 times 31 people. You're probably saying, wait, we have 23 precincts, why is that 31 instead of 23 election day judges? We do pay our rovers, our, what else we have, Sydney, our rovers and well, I guess the rovers will cover.
Chief judges, I guess, for early voting too.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So that cell phone reimbursement covers, that's why it's more than 23. We pay our rovers cell phone bill that day too. Because of
Good.
course, we're in constant contact with them through text and call.
These, under supplies and materials,
Uh-huh.
those replacement batteries for those DS-200. If, and I don't want to pick this thing apart, but that's sort of impressive.
That's for every machine we have. The life expectancy of those of 5 years, we're now over that.
So it's looming.
It's, we have to.
I understand.
We don't want 5 DS-200s down,
No.
because guess what? If we need a 6, we're out of luck. You know,
So is that a line item? I understand you feel good with where you're at for here, but is that something that's got to be done? What do we look at for the following year's budget then on that line item? Do those have to be, have we got to replace all those?
That's the recommendation, is to replace, and, you know, we have spoken to other directors who have had this happen. And that's why the consensus was go ahead and budget and do it at that 5-year mark. Well, you know, we started, the first election was the municipal of 2019 with the DS 200s. And then the first full election was the March 2020 primary.
For the 5 years it's been hit.
We're there. And we did have to we had to replace one already, and they did maintenance last spring, in 24.
One
One was
failed.
already gone, when they came and did their maintenance each.
That's awful.
Oh, and that would be next year. I bet it will be.
Yeah, I was thinking the
Even
same
more
thing,
per
that
battery.
each year in future budgets, because of the average longevity of the batteries, that projected cost is gonna go up.
Quite honestly, it probably already went up from the request in January.
Well, I'm glad we brought it up. We're talking about it then. I look at what's happening in the county. And the county's budget position, the county's, you can't ever predict what's gonna take place now, what's gonna take place next year, the year after that, what the needs the county is with schools, with other building needs, what the budgets will be like. But if these things are already 5 years and beyond, how many of these do we have in here?
What we have in just covers the machines we have. There are no extras, now, we do have 6 extra machines. If we count,
Depends on how many
Depends.
early voting sites. we
Yeah.
have normally.
but we can say we have 5 comfortably, but if we only have 2 early voting sites, we have 7. If we have 3, we have 6.
I don't want to add to your budget, but I guess what I'm asking is,
Do we need to?
is this the time? Is this a better time to do, and I know that you're staying under $1 million, and I know from preparing budgets or seeing budget prepared for the county, sometimes it's nice to be able to stay under certain numbers in comparison to previous year's numbers. And sometimes it's good to blow right on through and say, well, this is the reality. But I just look at maybe the difficulty. I don't know. Those are. I don't know. Let's throw it up on the table.
If this budget were beyond 1 year, it would,
Also, no question.
it would concern me more, and I'm sure that everybody on this board, because as you said, we don't know what will happen, beyond a year from now. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen tomorrow. So, and I'm good with what we've got for this year, but certainly as next year's budget comes back up, it needs to probably be a closer look, because the life of the batteries is running shorter and shorter and shorter with each year that passes.
What I was thinking is maybe, next year, look at doing 6 more batteries, do 6 per year, those until we get that 5-year. Again, and who knows what will happen with
Well, and just,
the certification of machines. I mean, you don't know.
That's it.
we go back to the contingency thing and being able to go in with a supplement. So listen, here's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I've got to have help.
Paul,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for that, expense that, the uncalculated expense. You don't seem to, I'm trying to find it, a sum set aside above and beyond, used or not used, but they're available like a rainy day fund. Where if you had a flood that wiped out 2 or 3 machines,
Mhm.
you're dead unless you have a rainy day fund to fix that.
Yeah.
That would be the contingency.
Yes, well, I was gonna say, it goes back to Clark's comment and having a separate line item for that extra contingency.
As odd as it sounds, the state of North Carolina has a pretty good rainy day fund. We've managed to dig into it because of the
Hurricane, yeah.
hurricane.
right now,
Like right now, if you don't have a fixed amount that builds up over time, every budget should have a request for that amount of money that's put aside so that if something happens that's totally unpredictable, you have a rainy day fund to reach into.
I have that, look at the next to the last page.
Contingency.
Read out loud the amount in miscellaneous. You have it, read
Miscellaneous
it, how much?
request 2,000, I saw that.
That's my rainy day fund.
Gotcha.
$2,000.
That is.
Arose by any other
I'm
name,
gonna-
it's not called a
I'm gonna say it.
contingency, it's called miscellaneous.
I'm gonna say something,
Okay,
that wouldn't last me a month in my household.
no, not in the emergency.
But per directions of the county manager, he does not want to have
Yeah.
a built-up budget from all the departments that has a small balloon inside of unknown needs, that is calling it contingency. He's wanting everything baseline. If it's needed, put it down there, and then we're gonna,
Well, you take, a rainy day fund can have a limitation to it. You say, you get above this amount, that it stops, you don't add to it, you keep it in its account.
I would just say this to your point though, Dwayne, if this is a bare bones, what you have to have budget, then we as a board have to be prepared to go to
To the board.
the board and say, that's what was turned in, because I've seen budgets turned in that were that. And then by the time it went through finance and the county manager's office, it wound up before the Board of County Commissioners pared down significantly. And if this is what's
There's
needed,
nowhere to
then
pare.
if there's no fat there to trim, it can't be trimmed.
Clark, you're right. I mean, I've seen,
That's
I've seen
the
it
issue.
in state boards serving with state government and certainly the private sector business side. Once we settle on a budget and the board votes on it,
Yeah.
that's it. And
Yeah,
then we get back together if we need to do something.
I don't want any fluff in it. But I gotta tell you, it'll always frighten me when I see something and hear replacement batteries for DS200s and they're got 5-year life expectancy and we're on 5 and 6 years. That's always gonna make me go, what?
I mean, they got batteries
the
in my
one I
plant.
Glad you know this now instead of October. like,
Yeah, that's what I'm
we're doing.
saying. See, because
Well,
if
be glad it-
I'm November 4th or 5th, or whatever the date is.
What do you have in your?
Then I go,
Clark, when we met, our last district meeting before this last one was like September. One of the directors said, did you have all your DS200 batteries replaced yet? Oh, you better, he got bit by it. And yeah, so he's like, you've got to budget for that next year. I said, well, yeah, I am, but.
On a lighter note with the budget, I've got a business friend of mine that just replaced his battery in his Tesla after 6 years. And it was just shy of $30,000.
My wife's Prius don't last that long.
I don't see anything else that I have a question about.
No, what is in your contingency fund right now? If you had to reach into it, if you had to reach into it tomorrow morning, say, God, I gotta buy these. Do you have anything in it right now?
Oh, right now, no, my miscellaneous is in the negative right now because of all the meetings we had.
Better bump that up. My request on that is that you push that miscellaneous fund up a little bit.
What would you like to see that at, Paul?
What I'd like to see is,
and we are in recording.
I carry that much in my phone. Okay? It's right there.
How much are we in the negative on our miscellaneous fund? How much are in the negative based on what happened this?
Forgetting my budget
I don't have that.
off the shelf behind me.
Doesn't have to be an exact number. I was just curious.
No,
It's black budget.
But with that said, you may have excess in other areas.
I do,
So, I don't know that it's.
I do.
Material.
So,
Yeah.
Supplies and
and I think we need to keep in mind.
Which is
that-
how the laptops were purchased, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
and I think we've got to keep in mind too, that she's come up with a bottom line number of 996,261 here, and may have come to that number. Tried to hold it in that place. So,
I'm still comfortable with the motion, you know,
yeah, so. After I've got answers on those 2 or 3 items I've asked about, I think I'm comfortable with the budget that she has presented.
Yeah, it's adequate. But boy, you have a mistake and it ain't adequate very long.
we'll go to the county commissioners and make our case.
You'd have to have a supplemental request.
And we know, going to the county commissioners, they hold the line. And that's what they've been elected to do. And so,
Yes.
you know, we all face that same line as taxpayers.
Yes,
But if it's anything pertaining, we know, to personnel, that does not go well, trying to add personnel. And, you know, we're probably, by me going and with this next statement, we're jumping over a lot of stuff that we're yet to cover, that we are yet to cover. But with changes coming nationally and whatever that the state might have in their legislation, their Senate, that they send, that comes into new ruling that we will have to follow. Right now, we're talking about a budget for 12 months that doesn't start until July 1st. There's a whole lot of things that can happen from the state. And then, of course, we've got a whole lot of stuff that's in the hopper from the federal government that's going to come down on, finalize on our shoulders.
yes.
What is your deficit in your miscellaneous right now?
Right now, actually, Paul, I have $80 left in that, but my perishable supplies, I'm 150%. Board member expenses. Board member fees. Well, we're on target, we're not over. We were submitted at the meeting. Perishables 150%, I'm at 100% spent. 126% in postage, but you know, that was, remember all the mailings
Yeah.
with absentee by mail,
So-
it went way up.
Would it be objectionable that you request not just that the 2,000, but you request a replenishment of what is already overdrafted on top of that in your budget?
Well, but see, with general fund, that's not how that. It's not how that.
I
That's
know, I
not
have to do my
typically
work.
how we're allowed.
I'm always refilling my wife's bank account.
Well, yes, I get that, but it's not typically. Look at general fund.
I know.
I promise this is my last question about it, because,
Right.
what was the total amount of last year's miscellaneous based on same number? Okay,
It's been that good.
okay, so you've been steady with that number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now,
But,
let me
but
say
has,
this,
but it's
Andy.
worked for them, I mean, within,
But let me say, before this current budget year was in, we did not have a perishables on.
okay,
Last budget year, Chris said, look, your board is there, your board eats. I want to add a perishable line, but don't take that out of miscellaneous.
okay.
So see, that's where that was coming from before. So
Gotcha.
he wanted that accounting to be more transparent,
Okay,
which I understand. I was gonna say, great,
Yeah.
perishable, that's fine. If that's what you want, it's what we'll do.
okay,
So in a way, we added that perishables that was never in the budget until last year and then going forward.
okay, I'm good with the budget, so.
What, do you have to give drug screens to everybody once a year?
No, but when we hire anyone new that is gonna work at an early voting site or Rover, whatever, anybody that's paid per hour, we do have to do background and drug tests.
So that's why you got 8.
Mhm.
That's
That's
small.
the-
I just wondered.
17, 18, but because we do for the general. Voting site.
That way, it's a total, it's in the way.
Yep. And all of the people that do our LNA testing, our sample and eye audit, all those people, that's who we pull from, are those part-time people, not election day folks.
On the second to the last page, under 55,500,555,00 dues and subscriptions. I'll just point out, we've talked about the Election Board Association. There is the annual dues for the 5 members, so there is $25 per board member for annual dues. That's
So we should feel obligated to attend.
Yeah.
should,
Okay. All right,
when they have those meetings there at those.
I think that again is why they're having 8 representatives from the 8 districts to say, hey, y'all come to the meeting. You know,
right.
rallying the troops, so to speak.
Okay, that's good. I'm not sure I fully realized that, but yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
I want to commend our director and her staff for the budget that they have presented. I can tell that it's taken a lot of work, it's been very thoughtful. I do have a little bit of knowledge about what goes into that process.
And if I may add, very responsible as well.
It's a great, tremendous amount of work. I want to follow that up by making a motion that we approve this budget for presentation as presented.
Second,
motion on the floor to,
second.
we have seconds, we have thirds. Any discussion on the motion to approve the budget that the director and staff has submitted? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion for approval by the board for the budget, say aye. Aye. Sounds unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having answers to the questions. Always.
And thanks to Sydney for putting all the poll worker and precinct thing into that nice, pretty chart.
Nice job.
Now we've got the big bag of tricks for other business.
That's the truth.
I think most, I think that's my view. Yeah, and there's, since our last meeting, there's been a fair amount of stuff going on. With y'all's indulgence, I'm gonna make a comment or two if I could on the association. I think that's a great idea. I don't think the board association has been very active for a very long time. I think Paul Shawcross was on the board in Johnson County when I was in Johnson County. That was a while ago.
He has been the chairman of that board.
Gordon was the chairman when I was there, but I think he was on it. And those associations can be effective, and it's not fair to analogize to the board of the county commissioners, the association of county commissioners. But that's still not a bad analogy. They are very effective in the General Assembly as lobbyists. Because they've been doing it for a long time, but because they do represent a whole lot of folks that are speaking from experience. So I think it's a great idea, and the more you can do it, the better. Now the Association of County Commissioners also has a buttload of money to spend to that. They've got 2 full-time paid lobbyists that are the association members. So that it's easier for them to be effective. But yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I'm glad that you guys are speaking about it. Another, again, with your indulgence, another personal note. I don't know that you all know that. In the last 2 months, I have taken another job. So in addition to being the county attorney for Surrey County, I'm going to be the counsel for the New Hanover Board of Elections. So I'll be doing more or less the same thing for the New Hanover Board of Elections that I do for you guys. And it'll be a full-time, you know, on a year-round basis. So, and I've talked to the director there, I've talked to your director. Everybody's going to coordinate with each other to make sure
I
that,
mean, that director I talked.
yeah, yes, make sure that you guys, that'll be seamless, that you guys won't notice that I'm also doing that work for the other board of elections.
Maniota Murphy.
And for our fellow board members that may not know as much as what's going on down on the coast, don't only because do have a physical presence there as well. New Hanover County went through a lot of criticism and scrutiny during this last election, a lot. And so your expertise, I'm sure, is
It was
going to help them.
Well, that was part of the emphasis for New Hanover County Board of Elections to broach the topic of having their own outside counsel. And that controversy also, the county attorney and assistant county attorney in New Hanover County also thought it was a good idea for them to counsel. And I'll brag a little bit. When they had this controversy, it was a bit of a punch up between the New Hanover Board of Commissioners and the Board of Elections and election staff. And so they hired an outside attorney, an outside law firm, to do what they called an audit of the Board of Elections, which made the Board of Elections very nervous about, well, because it was an open portfolio. It says you go in and tell me what you think of the Board of Elections. And so it was interesting when the report came out from the law firm that they hired. One of the recommendations was, well, we were going to recommend that you get outside counsel, but I understand you already hired Mark Payne and he's got lots of experience. That's a good move.
But I reminded Mark, we are still number one.
And I have known Chris Goodray for a long, long time. So if I have to strong arm you to get you, I will do it, whatever I have to do.
And I did know Chris from my Guilford County days. He was on Association of County Commissioners task force on opioid and how the counties are going to participate in the opioid litigation. And that task group did a lot, I think. I'm frankly, I'm proud of the work that whole task force did. So I got to know him there. And yeah, and I think that he's somebody that ultimately everybody's going to hold hands and be mounted. Yeah, I think everybody's now past that controversy and moving on. So I've talked to both directors about trying to coordinate, make sure that nothing that happens here happens at the same time. I need to be in New Hanover County, and I think that's going to work out just fine. So other things that have been happening, I'll go almost in reverse chronological order. One thing I wanted to talk about is the executive order that was very recently adopted by the president. And talk about that a little bit. And I don't know if you guys have read it or looked at it. It's I'm going to talk about it in two different terms. One, in what it does in the short term, and two, what its potential is in the long term. Because I think those are two different things. To start to, not to bury the lead, but to start with what it does in the short term. is for you guys, not really that much. It talks a lot about local and state obligations and what it would like to see and what the executive order anticipates for state and local election boards to be doing. But if you look at what it actually mandates, and I had to go through this because of the way it was written. I had to go through and circle the word shall every place it popped up.
Mhm.
And then look at who is the one that must do something. And if you look at it, it's the Election Assistance Commission, federal entity, the Fed Attorney General's Office, Federal Secretary of State, and there's a lot of obligations on Homeland Security. So all of the obligations that are laid out in the executive order are on those federal agencies. And most of it is to evaluate, it's to do two things. One, gather and provide data on information about voters, concerning residency, citizenship, and status, such as are you alive or dead, or are you under this demographic data, and provide all that data to the states with and again, it doesn't say the state has to provide it to the local governments, but it assumes it makes it available to them. And then it says that after all that data is provided, it directs the Attorney General, the Federal Attorney General's office, to prosecute any violations of voter registration and voting records that were fraudulent or illegal. So everything it requires is something down the road. And a lot of it really is everybody's got to follow the laws that are already in place, and we direct the federal institutions like Homeland Security to make sure all that data gets to the state, and that you review how the state handles that information. The one thing I would really focus on is section 4 that says it's entitled Improving the Election Assistance Commission. But what's really interesting is it directs the Election Assistance Commission to review, reevaluate, and if appropriate, to redo the certification of the federally approved certified voting systems. It implies, it doesn't say you stop using the systems that you have now,
Right.
but implies that it thinks that the use of voting data within a barcode or a QR code is improper, and that a new review of certification that such systems would not be certified. It doesn't say they have to be non-certified. It doesn't say we're calling them inappropriate. It's asked the Election Assistance Commission to review that with that in mind. So so you don't know from this what the election assistants must do or can do, but it sure does open up the possibility for there to be a decertification of the EAC approved election systems. And in North Carolina and in most states, as I understand it, the system you use is the only system that's both approved by the feds and the state. So the system that is used in North Carolina would no longer be an approved system, because they do have the QR code that have to certify them. So this presents the possibility down the road that we're gonna have a whole new voting system next full election. So it's something to keep aware of, to look at, to see where the EAC, Election Assistance Commission ends up down the road. And so right now, it's something I think you guys need to put on your radar. There's no action item for you guys. There may never be, or there may be some really challenging action items down the road, depending on where all of this goes. I can shoot copies of this to you if you want to look at it. It's not hard to get a hold of, but
I've got a copy. for
okay,
everybody.
good. We'll get copies for everybody, because it's pretty interesting, and and executive orders are written a lot the way statutes are, which is not always modeled for clarity. And you really have to do some sentence diagramming that you learn in middle school to figure out exactly where it goes sometimes. So that's there. It's, again, it's a wait and see sort of thing, like a lot of things I tell you. Now, the other thing that is a lot closer to home, and as far as you might have some action items coming down the road pretty soon, and that is the Griffin versus Riggs Supreme Court election challenge. The Court of Appeals just issued a 103 page decision, which includes the dissent, which is actually it's a 33 page decision and a 66 page dissent. On those issues, the three issues you're very familiar with, the challenge as to back in September, what was 60,000 voters who,
November. Did you say September?
yeah. No, yeah. Well, in September, there was a challenge that was issued on the 60,000, and it said 60,000 when the election protest was filed. It also said 60,000. It used us say that. Anyway, 60,000 voters who the allegation is that their registrations were improper because the registrations did not include last four social and or driver's license. The second issue was overseas voters who also did not provide an ID with their voting.
Photo ID.
Yeah, a photo ID.
Right.
And as you recall, the overseas voting didn't actually have a mechanism to provide a photo ID. And the third issue was the overseas residency issue that talked about overseas voters who were at one time dependents of overseas voters. You know, the typical example would be servicemen and women who had children out of the country and had reached majority, and then they voted. And so the allegation was those folks have never been residents of North Carolina within all of the legal definitions of residency other than the Federal Overseas Voter Act. And the North Carolina Constitution says that only North Carolina residents can vote in North Carolina. So you had that, and on the other side of that legal equation was, okay, everybody agrees that they're American citizens, and there's no other definition that would call them residents of any other state. So by applying this North Carolina Constitution, you are saying we are disenfranchising American citizens. I think that's a really difficult combination, equation to deal with. So those are the three issues. The 60, and you've seen a lot of discussion, about the 60,000 voters. I think it's another 8,000 that are impacted by the two overseas voter, challenges. And they don't get a whole lot of discussion, even though I think they're the more interesting and challenging legal issues that are in play. And so what you had after this lawsuit went to the state board, that they said, and they said, we're not gonna have an evidentiary hearing because we don't think your notice is right. And we don't think you're, and we think that there's no probable cause for this challenge of these 68,000 votes. So we're dismissing it. That appeal went to Superior Court, went to federal court, went back to Superior Court. Was the decision of the Board of Elections was upheld, that went to the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals decision, which just came out, the majority decision overturned it and found for Jefferson Griffin, saying that, yes, we think that there was probable cause, and directed it to go back to the State Board of Elections with the, and this is where it gets, to me, problematic. It goes back to the Board of Elections, and I am directing you to throw out these 68,000 votes, except for those that get cured over the next 15 days. Cure would be that those registrations are corrected with actual social security number or driver's license. The dissent basically said, no, the dissent basically agreed with everything the Board of Elections said. If you want to know my personal opinion, and I hope you do, because I'm going to give it to you.
We do pay for part of that, so.
I think they both got it wrong. As you know, when you've had these small scale challenges of votes, and you say, okay, you say that somebody wasn't a valid voter, and you gave, a sort of a first level of evidence to say, we think that there's something wrong with this voter. You say, okay, let's have an evidentiary hearing. And you say, okay, show me that this vote was invalid and show me why this vote was invalid. That's what you guys do on a consistent basis. What I think the Board of Elections should have done, and what I think, if I were the Supreme Court, which I very much am not, I would have said, okay, you guys got to start all over again.
Yeah.
Go back to the Board of Elections, have an evidentiary hearing, and Mr. Griffin, you show us the voters who weren't qualified to vote.
One by one.
One by one. List them. Don't say that there's bad registrations and some of them might have been cured. We don't know. We're not going to look to see if any of them got fixed. And by the way, we'll let you fix it down the road, but throw them out for now. That's not the way I read the law of what the obligation is, because one of the important things I tell you every time there's a hearing is the burden of proof is on the challenger. And Mr. Griffin has the burden of proof, and he can't say because there was bad registrations that equals bad votes. And he really doesn't say that. He says throw them out because they might be bad. I don't think that's what the law says. So I think they both got it wrong. And I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will send it back and say, show us which actual votes were off. There are a lot of issues going at play, and again, a lot of them I think are interesting. I don't know that I have a lot of faith that the Supreme Court is gonna do what, I know it's not gonna do what I tell us. But we'll see.
Chance that there will be another election.
Yes. At this point, I think that what the Supreme Court can do is a massively broad range of things. They can overturn this decision and just say, the Superior Court was right, everything's fine. They could uphold this decision and say, yes, give people, and that 15-day cure period had been stayed. I'm sorry, I did bury the lead a little bit on that. The Supreme Court has said, okay, we're gonna hear this, so until we hear it, local boards of election, you don't have to be involved in this cure process. And this doesn't really tell you what that cure process is supposed to look like. It just says voters have 15 days to fix their registration. It doesn't talk about how you can inform them, or you're supposed to be active informing them. You just wait for them to come to you. So that cure process, I think, needs some clarification. But I think they could say everything was fine. Board of Elections and Superior Court got it right. They can just uphold this. And you're back to trying to figure out what this 15-day cure day is. They could send it back. They could do what I would do if I were the Supreme Court. I think this, unfortunately, is probably the least likely of all the results. They could order it. They could say, we're going to throw out 60,000, and because the difference is 757, we're going to say that we're just going to assume that that's enough to impact the election. We're going to call a new election. I think they could within their authority do that. So what the Supreme Court can do is wide open at this point. What they're and where they're going to go with this, I don't know. It's a this Supreme Court has been less easy to predict than say the U.S. Supreme Court, when there's issues that are politically charged. But it has tended to vote along party lines more often than not. But there's a whole lot of wiggle room in what they could do and still somehow follow what people think of as the party line here. Frankly, if they send it back and say, have an evidentiary hearing, I think both sides could declare defeat or victory depending on what their perspective is on it. So it was a mess to start with. It continues to be a mess.
Cleaner, is it?
To my understanding, it is still the only election in the 50 states that has not been certified. And it doesn't look to me like it's going to be certified for a good long while. Because if this holds, let's say that the Supreme Court just says, whatever, everything that's here, we agree with. I don't even know what that 60,000 has turned into, because there's been a lot of folks who have called up and on their own and said, I'm on this list. What does it mean?
Yeah.
So,
If I can take this moment, just to
Yeah.
report on where we are.
Please.
As of yesterday, during our every 2-week huddle with the state board, Paul Cox spent quite a bit of time getting everyone up to speed, pretty much like you just did. Many questions rolled into the chat from directors all across the state. What can we do? What should we be doing? What do you recommend? So for the first time as of yesterday, Paul Cox did recommend that we start going through the list.
Okay.
We start identifying, of course, why they're on the list. And then if there is a social that is missing and is causing them to be on this list, but there's a social within their record from before that we can print, scan into their record. We can fill that social, that lacking social in. They gave us the go-ahead yesterday to do that.
And I think that's fully authorized in the statutes.
Yeah.
Because absent this issue, if somebody just called up and said, hey, would you check my registration? And you had that same information, you would have had the authority to do that. So it's only because of the scale that this
And that's
feels
what
like
Paul
something
said, he said,
different.
like you would do.
Yeah.
So I'll just let you all know, to remind you all, Surrey County did have 254 on that 60,000 list. Since yesterday through today, they have worked nonstop. 48 have been
Cured.
quote unquote fixed, cured.
Yeah.
Their social was already within their record and they were able to print, scan in and validate those numbers. 3 are now deceased on this list.
Mm.
1 has moved out of the county. So we now have 202 lacking.
Okay,
Now, if, you know, the list here, they went through and put, you know, the reasons invalid. I'll give you an instance of the one lady, the one voter who is very concerned. She's called us multiple times. She provided that information, but her social wouldn't validate with her name. So we don't know if her social security is in her maiden name but she has 2 last names. Well, we can't do anything at all to fix that. State board can't do anything to fix that.
Right.
So she's like, so what do I do? And the
Social
only
Security
question we can say is, we don't know.
Yeah.
You might need to go to Social Security Administration and, you know, she said, I've never had an issue anywhere but voting. And I said, well, ma'am, I cannot tell you anything else.
You're gonna get it on the mud hole there.
Yeah,
It won't validate.
Jeez.
and.
what about her driver's license number?
Well, she lives in Canada.
Oh.
Valid North Carolina.
She's been in Canada since 2019 and she is, you know, she's going to be there. Yeah.
Okay,
She has, that's her job is
I
where
mean,
she
it-
lives.
Right now, they're finding things that have not been done properly in the Social Security Administration. They've just threw it aside rather than deal with it.
well, to that point, I shared with everybody this morning in an email, and I know not everybody's had a chance to read my emails over the last week or so, but on this particular topic, this federal Doge has uncovered 4 million Social Security numbers that have been issued by the Social Security Administration since 2021, 2022, 2023, and 24. 4 million Social Security numbers issued to non-residents and non-citizens of this country based on the data. So all of you have an email that shows this, but again, where that's going to go, time's going to tell, but it will fall into a piece of this executive order at some point, very quickly.
Where does that data originate from?
Yeah, that's a problem.
It comes from the Social Security Administration.
Their own,
And then they've checked with DHS to verify if those Social Security numbers match with citizens of this country. So they have
That's ironclad information.
it is. I mean, they have.
I saw it as a Fox News opinion.
Yeah,
Piece is what it said.
Well-
So I find it suspect and.
it wasn't an
obviously I
opinion.
would.
It wasn't an opinion piece.
Well, I mean, that's what it said on the screen. that you
Right.
sent.
You're right, they did, but the fact that Doge, I looked at it too, and I did some further checking, and
This
it
is
came from
personal.
their investigation with the Social Security Administrations and cross-referencing with
this was
DHS.
personal. When I was 15 years old, I filed to get a Social Security number. Because back when I was growing up, you went to the post office, you got a card, you filled it out, and they sent you a Social Security card. That was for my first job.
You
Then
didn't
I
get
thought
that
I
when
was
you were you didn't get one when you were born, after you were.
They didn't have it, I don't think. when I was born. Then when I got another job, I did the same thing and filled out another card, because I thought it was a separate number, didn't think about it. They sent me a second social security number.
So
My dad found out about it. He said, son, you gotta correct that. You're only supposed to have one social security card. You know, it took 7 years to get rid of the
Get whatever.
other social security, the number I wasn't supposed to have. I could be running around collecting 2 social security checks, but I never knew it.
Well, there are supposedly a lot of dead people that are still collecting.
And that's exactly right. There are people that have been dead for 15, 20 years that are still collecting social security because nobody reported their death. Because,
Over 300 years old, I understand.
yeah, they got
Yeah,
some.
exactly.
I mean, this actually was an incident in my life. I didn't know you didn't get new social security. And so the Navy had me listed with the wrong social security number. And when I went to get straightened out with my Navy and stuff, they had me a different number. And it took, when I got to a certain thing, my name, get my DD 214 and all that stuff. Wait a minute, it's under this number, not that number. Cause it hadn't been straightened out. But it took 7 years for them to finally cancel that second number.
And just think, if you'd have been a female and gotten married. how
Oh,
much-
boy, they had them. They were really having fun. But no, you see, when I enlisted in the Navy, the rule was simple. The state in which I enlisted was my state I voted in until I retired from the Navy, if I'd stayed in and retired. That was my home state. So all my voting would go to that state.
Okay,
Unless I took a new address and completely changed it and I had to register it. So my driver's license, had I never gotten out of the Navy, my driver's license would have been good for as long as I was in the service. The same driver's license.
And the, first of all, less honest folks than you go and pay people to get a second social security number, so.
Yes.
Good on you for doing that.
No, my dad said, when it came, he said, oh, what's this? I said, well, I got, when I went to work for Frank, he had me fill out a paper. I went and got a new social, you don't do that. You don't get one. But it took 7 years for him to cancel it.
because of the calls, and we're glad to get the calls.
Sure.
We were thrilled, honestly, to hear this.
Yes,
Because if we only have 15 days, when and if that comes, we want to be ahead of that. So,
And the 15-day deadline was one of the main arguments that the Board of Elections put in their appeal for the stay was, no matter what you do, you gotta, 15 days is not enough. If we have to fix this, the 15 days isn't enough.
especially
We
if
get
you've
us
got
to
someone in Germany and they voted and they've got to send us their
Yeah.
photo ID,
Not going to.
that's not gonna happen.
if I may, I'm pleased to hear that we got a green light from the state board to start the process. In my emails to my fellow board members, I had expressed, that's really been my biggest concern, is that this follows the same principle behind the budgets. We have contingency or miscellaneous. We're preparing for risk management. That's what it is, for risk that hit our budget. Same thing with our team and the amount of time and resources it's going to take. I feel that we should be ready and we should be prepared, and hopefully, maybe we don't have to exercise it, maybe we do, but the fact that the state board has recognized that, giving us the green light, I think just is good for us all the way around. Because if everybody recalls, when this first came up in our special meeting, when this data was provided to us from the state board, they told us 2 of the 3 categories, local boards, all yours, go at it. But the biggest chunk of the voter registration, social security numbers and driver's license, they said, keep your hands off of it.
Yeah, it's
Look at the local level because the state's going to take care of it. I won't get into, what they did and didn't do after that, but I'm just very pleased to hear that it's coming back to us because this is where the boots hit the ground. I mean, this is where we're serving our citizens in Surrey County, and regardless of any legal directive, it's part of our responsibility to the voters, regardless if we were pressed to do this. I mean, we would want to make sure that the public knows this is an issue. We did some of that on, initially on our webpage and the Facebook page, just letting people know if you have any concerns, check with our local board of elections and we'll work with you to help fix it. That's what we do. One of
And
the
the
things we
paper
do.
has been very good about getting that message out with each story.
Yeah.
About this too.
Yeah.
Drew, you started to say something?
I've just been woefully ill-informed with your informative messages since February. I haven't got one,
His email is not, his county email is not.
so I'm woefully
So
behind.
if
Okay.
he's not responding,
Okay.
I got it.
So if I cannot smartly say something to your thing, please give me a pass for this.
Feel for him.
Yeah.
Be prepared. As a board, we should be prepared for edict coming down,
For what?
for an edict coming down,
Ruling.
ruling,
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
prepare for a special election.
Can they redo the 2020 election that only passed by 400 votes?
Nope. They can say, the court can say, this has become out of control. With special election, Supreme Court Justice, only vote.
I mean,
Do we need to revisit the budget?
And then there goes your budget.
yeah. Miscellaneous.
For that possible November election this year that was supposed to be for the school bond referendum. We're probably just gonna leave it in case we have a special election.
That's exactly right.
I think it's within the realm of possibility.
So that puts. us
I'm not
back
gonna
over
tell you it's a
to 1
possibility,
million.
that's what's gonna happen.
Well, the good news on the Griffin.
They
is
will
we're-
pass the buck.
Mhm.
Good
The
news
buck
is
will be
we're
passed.
taking some action.
Yeah, and again,
And that's great.
Wayne here,
I'm
I was gonna
I'm
pass that.
thrilled about
That's
that.
the
This
list.
is the list.
Yes, sir. That's the working, living document.
May I add something to Mr. Payne's great overview of both of these cases, particularly on the EO 14248? I have read this law more times than I care to read it. As a non-attorney, and trying to understand it and Mark, you cleared that a lot of things up. I think it's important for us to understand what could come to us. The EO does say within 30 days of the date of this order, which the date of the order was March 25th of this year, that the EAC, to Mark's point, shall take appropriate action to require in its national mail voter registration form issued under to require the documentary government issued proof of citizenship. So within 30 days, we should be expecting a new form, a national voter registration form.
Yeah, the national form that's exactly right. The national form that you use now is to be correct, to be
Yeah.
changed and updated consistent with that
There,
requirement.
there is an exception to this, If the House of Representatives takes it before it's out, they can throw this whole EO right out.
They could,
Yes.
but they're not going to,
Well,
in my opinion.
but you don't get too, sometimes things take place
They can, but
that you don't expect, because somebody might say, wait a minute, we're expecting too much out of this order. Let's take it. Once they take it up, it stops them. Once it's taken up, they don't have to do anything with it.
that's right.
All they have to do is take it up. And that freezes.
And one thing I did, we can talk about these things for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But one additional thing about that, there are at least, there's at least one, I think there are multiple lawsuits that have been filed about the executive order. I have not seen where any judge has stayed the terms of the executive
I haven't
order.
either.
No, as far as I know, that executive order is still in place as
Oh,
we
yeah.
speak right now. But a judge could stay the implementation of the executive order pending hearing in some of those lawsuits.
Well, that right now is coming up under question right now. Does a district federal judge have the right to challenge an executive order?
Yeah, it's,
That's it. Yeah. Now that's now going before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Can a district judge challenge an executive order?
so to go back to this, I mean, again, just in us being prepared in our minds as to, within that 30 days, and then again, could be longer, but let's say it is 30 days, and the EAC complies with it. On that particular topic, it is my understanding from very reliable sources that there is a team, a national team that was put together from various resources that are in Washington, DC today, meeting with the president's team about this executive order. And they're from all states. They're providing local information to the federal team. And one of the things, the North Carolina contention that's part of this has said, you got to make sure that this goes a step further, that if you change the national voter registration form, then every state's voter registration form should mirror the national voter registration form. That would make a lot of sense to me, but that is in the works as we're meeting right now. So assuming in 30 days we see a new national voter registration form, how does that impact us? Because we've got to verify citizenship for that national voter registration form.
Barring any additional
Right.
obligations, if things that come down the way
Yes.
out of those discussions, the executive order just says the national forum has to have this on it, and you states and local boards of elections, you have to use that form when people provide it.
Right.
But it doesn't supplant any state forms, or it doesn't make any obligations as to state forms. So barring some other change down the road, all of that executive order, the way I read it, changes is the federal form requirement.
Yes. And
So we don't have to go in and say our 44,000 registered voters, we're gonna have to have new forms filled out on them. Other than what's impacted with the rigs.
But are we gonna have to have it because of proof of citizenship?
they won't be able to vote the next election without the government issued proof of citizenship.
But that's, which is, falls back to sort of the $60,000 debate, $60,000 debate, and where that plays out. Because, by the way, there's still federal litigation on that same topic. As well as the state litigation that's going on the topic. And by the way, those two other lawsuits out there challenging what's left of Senate Bill 747 and 749 are still out there, and they're going through discovery right now. And there's a lawsuit challenging 7382 that stays the terms of 382 that's still out there, and as far as I know, hasn't even started discovery. So there's a whole lot going on out there that you do not know where it's going to end up.
Right. And assuming this does go into effect, the executive order, and nothing else changes, again, just it's being prepared for the what if. Not that we're going to spend a lot of time, but we just need to be prepared for what we have to do as a staff and a team and a board. Because it reminds me of federal HAVA enforcement and the corresponding state law that, we didn't have to go back and correct all that. We addressed it as people came in to register, and we addressed it at the time of voting for people to show their social or their driver's license. And then we would make every effort to cure that voter registration. I see similar process with requiring all voters to show government issued proof of citizenship. They'll have to do it with the new national voter registration form when the state, and if the state corrects theirs to mirror, then now, we've got it for all new registrations, but anything that we, in the gap or prior, we'll have the responsibility to address it at the time that they come to us and or come in to vote in the midterms, and they're going to have a government issued voter ID,
Document.
proof of citizenship. The other thing is that our own voter ID, as this EO goes even further, assuming it's done, our current state voter ID will not be, and all the approved voter IDs, as I read it, would not be acceptable, because every voter ID must show on the ID that they are a citizen of this country.
We're gonna have everybody walking around with proof of who they are, like in Europe, everybody's got to show their papers.
Yeah.
Show their
Well,
papers.
this is not
So if the
something.
Gestapo wants to pull them over, they
Well,
got.
Again, there are 122 countries around the world that have a national voter ID, which is another push going on right now. And that national voter ID in those 122 countries, and they're from, first world to third world. They only get a national voter ID if the government has confirmed that they're a citizen of that country. So, it cures the process.
The processes could be simply handled by the states. When you get your driver's license, it could say right on there, citizen, non-citizen.
Well, that's what a real ID driver's license is, and
But not everyone gets a driver's license.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
That's another issue. Yeah, my
majority
son,
of people
one of
do.
my sons got clobbered by a guy driving a truck that wasn't even a citizen of the country. And he just got out of the pickup truck and walked away, and that was the end of the,
I'd like to make one last comment.
he lost his vehicle and that was it. The guy just walked away.
Just for the sake of all of us, again, being prepared. So much could change, but this EO also says in 180 days, the EAC must go through the recertification process. They've got to totally review the voter voting systems, the 2.0, make sure that the certification includes all the new requirements in this EO. And so within 6 months, conceivably, we'll know if machines in this state are acceptable or not acceptable, which is going to be before the midterm. So.
And then we would be back in front of the commissioners. begging
Exactly.
for
Yes.
lots of funds.
And if it's the same certification process, state certification process, that's really not enough time to recertify any machines between then and the election. So,
It's a can of worms.
yeah,
So
that's probably enough for me, sorry.
and that's enough for me. So I just want to, as long as we are thinking about it, and we have a plan of action, then we'll be in better shape than if we didn't have a plan of action. That's my
So,
point.
so it's in other business where we've passed that we approve the budget as presented with other news from our esteemed attorney. Should we, as an alternate, have the other budget that did provide for another election in hand with that possibility of, the court saying, just have another election for that one seat.
Okay, I'm wearing my 25 years of county attorney hat in answering that question. You're a lot more likely to get the exact dollars you need for a new election if you go to the Board of Commissioners and say,
We have no
this is
choice.
brand new, here's an
Where do we get this
order
money
that
from?
says we've got to do this.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
And the
Yeah.
county
Thank
would
you.
have to comply with the resources.
they have to fund it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against the law and in the court when they say you will do this and,
So no action on that. Any further other business?
Board member appointments. We did get an update. I'm sorry, I'm gonna look at my phone because they've not posted the huddle yet, and I took screenshots yesterday real quick. Board appointments. There is April the 14th, which is Monday, Wake County Superior Court, a decision will be issued by May 1st. And I think the state Republican Party has asked the county Republican parties for names. I understand already. I think it'll be turned in by April 24th, possibly.
April 24th.
Mhm. And of course, that would, I don't think the Democrat Party has been approached yet because it's likely the chair is going to be appointed by the state auditor, which is Republican. So that is already happening and those names will be turned in by May 1st. So unless something changes Monday, again, Mark, you might not be done yet.
And I'm not gonna pretend to guess what's gonna happen
Monday.
there.
More appeals.
That they have told the state, the NCGOB has told the county chairs to be prepared. Turn everything
Okay.
in by April the 24th.
Okay.
And since I've got the floor, I have one question about of the 254, did you have a breakdown? of the demographics?
We do, We have it now. I don't have that tallied. Are you asking party?
Yeah,
Yeah, we do have it on that list, but no, we don't have how many unaffiliated, how many Republican, how many Democrat. I will tell you this, in Surrey County, the majority is gonna be Republican. It's just how it is.
Well, yeah, the pecking order, Republican, unaffiliated, and then Democrat, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was-
Just because of the registration number.
Yeah, and glancing at it, there's way more Republicans, but that's
Well-
everything we have in this office, it's just.
I have an email that actually has the Republican side. I just not opened it yet
Okay,
because I'm dragging my feet because we're going to be told to start the healing process.
for these, yeah.
So, and that's, I wanted to hear what the state is giving you direction. Okay, I'll log in.
And I,
Again,
this
you
is
have
one.
one first day, Chris. We've
Give
been,
him
we've been
one.
like
You
this
keep-
for.
You keep one. You keep one.
What they,
It's for you.
Yeah.
oh, there's one. Oh, there too.
So,
For what it's worth, that's one of the reasons why I think they shouldn't. That everybody should listen to me and do what I think they should. Because, I don't think those 60, I don't. I don't think anybody has any reason to think those 60,000 voters. Are gonna vote any different than the other 7 million or 11 million, or however many
so,
did, because they're just folks who it's not like they're early voters or later voters, it's not like they're,
What's it?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a sampling
Mhm.
of every other vote. I think you could, if you throw out all 68,000 of those votes and do a recount, it could change nothing, or it could change the outcome. And I don't think you do that. I think to change the outcome, you need data on how those people
Yeah,
voted.
yeah, and Mark, to your point, I totally agree with you in the sense that the military and overseas numbers are nearly 8,000, and the margin of victory is 734. So why not start there before you go to the 60,000? Because if 735 of those almost 8,000, go in either direction and determine a victor, then it's done. And dealing with 8,000 across the state is a lot easier than dealing with 60,000 across the state.
And there is case law, I'm sorry, we're probably beating this horse well after it's terrible. But there's plenty of case law out there that says you can extrapolate from data. So if you took those 8,000 and did a data change and say, oh, well, if you look at those, it actually doesn't change the vote at all, then you could extrapolate that to the 60. Or if it does change it, you could say, well, then maybe there's something about that population that is enough to affect the election. It's a mess.
Mhm.
I think
If
everybody
they
agrees.
go and open it back up, okay, they go back and say local elections that were decided by 3 or 4 votes.
No,
It depends.
I mean,
And they've already been certified, but wouldn't that decertify them?
you guys are going to get that question all the time out there when
We already
anybody
have.
that pays attention to it.
Yes.
Again, this is the only election in the country that is not certified. If you're certified, then by law, there wasn't an error.
You still have an issue of that 60,000, 64,000, 68,000, whatever the number is, disenfranchising their vote that where they voted at the time under the existing law.
And yeah, and that's the other thing that I think makes. If you're gonna agree with the law, if you agree with the Court of Appeals majority opinion as to the law, you still are saying that people who did exactly what they thought they were supposed to, that's what you have to have a very, very robust cure. Even if you agree that, okay, those 60,000 votes are questionable, you still have to have a very robust cure because it's not anything they did. And a lot of them aren't even aware that that's an issue.
Don't you suspect that if it winds up and the state Supreme Court agrees with the appeals court, it'll then go to the federal bench? If they're not going to accept, I mean, if you're Riggs, you're not going to.
Especially when it's
allow
the
that to
only
stand.
one.
I mean,
And especially because of the overseas voters. And I'm not saying this was because it's loaded, but I'm saying, I'm not using this as a loaded term, I'm using this as a legal term that would gather the Fed's interest because of the disenfranchisement issue of overseas voters.
Didn't have the opportunity to.
That is an issue that I can see the Feds, whatever their position is, that they want to take it up. So yeah, all this. We could be several elections down the road before
I don't think this race will be determined for quite a long time.
If time.
Unless the state Supreme Court comes up and says Riggs won this election, I think we're a long way from determining who will be seated in that. I think Riggs could potentially serve out the term before it's decided.
No, I think it's possible. I think you could have a Riggs Griffin.
Rematch.
And
I'll add just one more thing to the board appointment. Absent a court order otherwise, the state board will newly appointed by the auditor on May 1st, and the county board chairs would be newly appointed by the auditor on June 24th. The state board will still appoint the 4 members of the county boards on June 24th.
Okay.
So
Read it, that sentence again.
The state board will still appoint the 4 members of the county board on June 24th. So two Democrats, 2 Republicans. And then, of course, state conference is July 27th, 28th, 29th in Wilmington. So literally, the board members may not know they're on the board until 1 week before
Yeah.
conference.
They're sworn in, right, July, yeah.
Mhm.
So this board will be going to
Sworn in
conference.
the week before conference.
This board will be going to conference.
No, sir, not.
I thought
necessarily.
Not all, not
We don't
particularly.
know.
Oh, I thought I didn't thought you get sworn in till July though.
You don't, but June 24th is when the state
Appointments.
selects. I mean,
Oh.
that's, the next week would be July, yeah.
If I'm not appointed,
You're not getting sworn
either
in.
chair or as one of the 4 members, I don't need to go to that conference. Somebody else needs to go in my place.
Well, more importantly, if I don't get appointed.
Okay, that's all I had on, the board makeup.
I know what you mean, Ryan.
Just let one of them call it.
You're it.
I would like to add one last thing and then I'm done, I promise.
I've heard this before.
I know I said it twice. but- I said it twice. Well, you've rubbed off on me. fellas. I do feel like it's worth noting that the issue with the 60+ thousand having to do with social security, last 4 social security and driver's license. Federal and state law was in effect for 20 years. And we were handicapped. We were one arm time behind our backs of being able to properly apply the law. And that is coming back to bite us. And that's a fact. So I'll leave it at that.
I think that's all I had for open business. The other 2 items are in closed session. That's all I have.
Okay. Hold us a second, please, if you don't mind. If there's nothing else from the board on other business, I would entertain a motion that we close our open session and take a 5-minute break as we've been sitting here for 2 hours and come back and we'll have closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion. We agree to close the open session and take a 5-minute break and come back for a closed session.
Yes, we have a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're closed on this session.
Great topic, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, we're now out of closed session and we're in open session. Back again. There was no actions, no votes taken during our time in closed session. And so, is there anything further for our meeting today and our open session now? Madam Director,
No, sir.
Attorney,
Nothing.
board members,
No, sir.
thank you. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Gentlemen, I'd like to make a motion that this meeting be called to adjournment.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. By Paul. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor for adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You do that.